You know, every time you send a text, stream a video, or make a call, you're tapping into this massive, invisible world of physical infrastructure. Well, today, we're going to meet the landlords of that world, the cell tower companies. We're diving deep into the Q4 2025 report from a huge player in this space, SBA Communications, to really understand the business that powers your signal bars. So, why does this industry even matter? Well, just look at this number. 132 trillion megabytes. That's how much mobile data we Americans chewed through in 2024. It's a 35% jump from the year before, which is the biggest increase ever recorded. Our absolute hunger for data is what fuels this entire business. It's pretty incredible. So here's the game plan. We'll kick things off with their latest financial report card. Then we'll get into some of the headwinds they're facing, basically losing some key customers. After that, we'll see how they plan to grow, both here in the US and overseas. And finally, we'll look ahead at the really exciting stuff, 6G and AI. It's a story of wins, losses, and a serious plan for the future. All right, let's get right into it. First up, the Q4 2025 scorecard. Let's see how the company's books looked at the end of last year. But before we get into the nitty-gritty numbers, what exactly is the business model here? It's actually super simple. Just think of SBA as the ultimate landlord for the wireless world. They own the actual physical towers, and their tenants are the big wireless carriers. You know, the Verizons, AT&Ts, and T-Mobiles of the world, who pay them rent to stick their antennas and all their gear on those towers. So how did our landlord do? Well, it was a bit of a mixed bag. On one hand, they beat profit expectations, which is great. Their earnings per share came in at $3.47. But on the other hand, they just missed on revenue, bringing in a little under $720 million. So long story short, they were more profitable than Wall Street thought they'd be, even though they brought in slightly less cash. And what are they doing with all that profit? Well, for one, they're bumping up their quarterly cash dividend by 13%. That's $1.25 per share. Now, this is a really strong signal of confidence to investors. It basically tells them the company is financially healthy and is committed to giving money back to its shareholders. And that's not all. The company still has $1.1 billion left in its stock buyback program. They already spent $213 million just in the last quarter of 2025. This is another one of those huge signs of strength. The company is basically investing in itself, buying up its own shares because they believe they're a good bet. Okay, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Even with those strong financials, our landlord is having some serious trouble with its tenants. Let's dig into the bad news, the challenges of customer turnover. So this all comes down to a really important word in this business, churn. And if we stick with our landlord analogy, it's super simple to understand. Churn is basically when a tenant decides to move out. They pack up their stuff, stop renting space on the tower, and poof, the landlord loses that rental income. For a business built on these long-term leases, this is a very big deal. And right now, SBA is getting hit by what you could call a perfect storm of churn. First, the T-Mobile and Sprint merger is costing them around $55 million in lost revenue. Then there's a nasty dispute with EchoStar that's forced them to just completely write off all future revenue from them. And on top of that, international mergers, especially one down in Brazil, are piling on another $36 to $40 million in losses. Ouch. And this whole EchoStar thing, yeah, it's getting ugly. SBI didn't just walk away. They terminated the contract and are now suing them to get their money back. So this isn't just a friendly disagreement. This is all-out war with a major tenant. So you might be wondering, with major tenants packing their bags, how on earth does a company like this plan to grow? Well, they've got a plan. Let's look at their game plan for right here in the US market. Their growth strategy really has 4 key parts. First is co-location. That's just adding new tenants to towers they already own. Second, amendments. That's when they charge existing tenants more to upgrade their gear for new tech, like something called Massive MIMO, which is a huge booster for 5G. Third is densification, which just means building more towers in crowded areas. And finally, the big one, fixed wireless. This is home internet delivered over the 5G network, and it is already eating up more than half of all network capacity. This is a direct shot at traditional cable and fiber, all coming from these very towers. Now, the US is a big market, for sure, but it's pretty mature. So for that really explosive growth, you gotta look abroad. Let's check out their international game plan. And this chart right here really tells the whole story. In the US, you've got about 16 cell sites for every 10,000 people. Now look at Brazil, a huge market for SBA. They only have 4. That gap, That is just pure, untapped potential for growth as Brazil builds out its network. And it's not just about Brazil either. They're making some really smart moves all over the world. They're now the top independent tower company in Central America. And get this, their markets in Africa are actually delivering the highest returns in the entire company. It's a really smart strategy, diversifying into these high-growth markets that aren't quite as built out yet. All right, we've talked about the here and now, but let's look down the road a bit, because there are some massive technological shifts coming. And guess what? They all lead right back to the cell tower. So what's the big deal about 6G anyway? Isn't it just faster 5G? Well, not exactly. Think of it like this. 5G is mostly a one-way street. About 80% of the data is stuff you download, streaming Netflix, scrolling through social media. But 6G is designed from the ground up to be a two-way conversation. It's going to be a much more balanced mix of uploads and downloads, all to support these insane real-time AI-driven applications. So how do we even get to 6G? It's not just a software update, believe me. It's a huge physical world project. First, governments have to auction off new airwaves. That new spectrum is going to require much denser networks, meaning more towers built closer together. But the real game changer is this idea of AI at the edge. Processing is going to move from some far-off cloud data center right to the tower itself. And that means you need more real physical hardware bolted onto these things. And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. Listen to what SBA's own CEO, Brendan Kavanagh, had to say. He said true 6G cannot be done with just software. It will also require physical components. That means more compute at the tower site. The future of AI and wireless isn't just floating around in the cloud. It is literally, physically bolted to these towers. So all of this leaves us with one big, kind of crazy question to think about. As our digital lives and our physical world start to merge more and more, driven by all this real-time AI, will the humble cell tower, that silent landlord of the sky, actually become the single most critical piece of infrastructure in your entire neighborhood? It's definitely something to think about the next time you look up.